wives. As soon as he could, he would take compromising photographs of them that would degrade them. And then he would say to them, I've got these negatives, I've got these photographs. I'm going to send them to your mother. I'm going to send them to your father. All the time working them away from their families, owning them.
Photographs that we got.
Agents showed Marianne some of the sadistic photos they had found in de Barteleben's possession.
You might recognize these young ladies.
They wanted to know if she could identify any of the women in them. Marianne recognized the pictures had been taken in their home, but she couldn't identify the women. She said de Barteleben had shown her some photos like these in which he was abusing women sexually. When she threatened to go to the police, he tied her to the bed and performed sexual atrocities on her. He didn't just beat her up, said Marianne, but did things to her that they would not believe. To the agents, it was clear Marianne had been brutalized by de Barteleben. The Secret Service's determination only intensified to try and find his other victims. They feared if they did not, de Barteleben might only serve a few years and would soon be back on the streets, as he had been before. As the Secret Service built their counterfeiting case against James Mitchell de Barteleben, they uncovered disturbing evidence pointing to vicious crimes. A series of chilling handwritten notes outlined multiple crimes against women. Crimes he tape recorded. Investigators processed the evidence found in de Barteleben's storage locker and sent it to law enforcement agencies around the country. They hoped they could identify some of his victims. They knew if they didn't find any victims, they could only charge him with counterfeiting, and then he would be out on the streets after serving only a few years. While the Secret Service agents were waiting for information to come into their offices, they located another of de Barteleben's ex-wives, Linda. Investigators visited her at the store where she worked.
When we located her, she totally freaked out because when she saw our investigators, she thought that they were hitmen, that he had located her and sent them to kill her.
After the agents assured her they were not sent by her ex-husband, she agreed to come down to the local Secret Service office.
We wanted to talk to her not only about the counterfeit case, but also the possibility of him being involved in other criminal activity, focusing on violent crimes against women, anything that she might be able to help us with.
We need to get some
the first thing that she said was, he'll kill me, he'll kill me, he'll kill me.
As she began to speak, the investigators who had heard the screams on de Barteleben's Linda tape suspected de Barteleben's ex-wife Linda was the woman on the tape. The agents showed her the nude photos, but she couldn't identify any of the women. They asked her about de Barteleben's crimes.
When I asked her if he were involved in other criminal activity, or any sexual crimes, or any murder, she started to break down.
She told agents she came home one day to find de Barteleben with a young woman he had tied up.
He had kidnapped a woman and brought her into the house and held her captive and was torturing her. And he showed her this woman. And he said, I want to kill her, and I want you to witness it.
Linda told the agent she talked de Barteleben out of killing the woman. He let her go, and Linda never saw her again. She said she was too afraid to go to the police. The agents were never able to corroborate her story. It has never been proven. She remembered he traveled a lot and would leave for long periods of time. When he returned, he always had stacks of cash.
I got this.
After the interview, Linda requested the agents leave her alone. She'd been trying to get over her past, she said, and needed to move on with her life. The agents were now more determined than ever to seek justice for the lives de Bardeleben destroyed. It had been weeks since they disseminated the information about de Bardeleben, and calls started coming in identifying him as a possible suspect in many unsolved crimes.
After we started disseminating the information, police departments started calling us and saying, well, I've got a crime similar to this, you know, what about this? Can you associate de Bardeleben to being in my particular city in this time frame?
They had evidence that seemed to point to his involvement in nearly 200 crimes. As each call came in, the agents checked their database. Sometimes they could eliminate de Bardeleben based on their receipts because he was thousands of miles away on that date. Other times they were able to place him in the vicinity shortly before or after the crime. One of the calls that came in was from the Prince William County Police Department in Manassas, Virginia. Don Cahill, a senior investigator, learned of the case through the Secret Service flyer. He thought de Bardeleben might be the man who posed as a police officer and sexually assaulted a local woman 2.5 years earlier. Detective Cahill contacted the Secret Service and forwarded his report of the assault to their headquarters in Washington. The agents checked the information against their database and told Detective Cahill that de Bardeleben was a possible suspect.
We could place him in the area at that time. We have receipts found in a storage area that put him in Manassas during that same period of time.
Did he show you a badge?
Now that they had a suspect, detectives from Prince William County contacted the victim, Lori Cobert. Cobert was on her way home when she noticed some lights in her rearview mirror. It appeared she was being followed by an unmarked police car. Cobert recalled the harrowing night of February 5th, 1981.
I pulled over, figuring the car was going to pass me, so I knew I wasn't speeding. When it pulled in behind me, I thought, what am I being pulled over for? I remember him asking for my driver's license and my registration. Then he walked back to his car, and I was watching him in my rearview mirror, and I saw him reach into the driver's side, like through the window. And so I just assumed he was calling it in, checking my license.
Get out of the car now. Why? Be quiet.
Then came back and asked me to step out of the vehicle.
Get out of the car now.
I didn't do anything.
Just get out.
I didn't do But I didn't do anything.
He opened the car door and I slid in. And when I got inside and I looked around the car, at that point I realized he's not a cop. This is not a police car, and you are in deep trouble.
Cobert said de Bardeleben reached under the dashboard and she heard a click as if he had a gun.
He told me that he was not a police officer. Then he said that he wouldn't hurt me as long as I did what he wanted me to do.
He then sexually assaulted her.
I decided that I was going to make it out alive. I was going to survive. So I had to calm myself down. I thought, you need to calm down. You need to keep a level head. And I wanted to remember something about him. So I started staring at him and just burned his face into my memory. And I was determined that I would remember him.
When de Bardeleben was finished, he pushed Cobert out of his car.
He led me back to my vehicle, put me back into my car, and told me, don't look back.
Don't tell anybody about this. This never happened.
I just dropped it into driving and left. as fast as I could. And went back into Manassas to try to find a police officer.
Detectives in Prince William County obtained a picture of DeBartolome which they included in a photo lineup.
I looked at the photos and I said, that's him.
That's the guy.
Cobert also recognized a picture of the 1971 Chrysler agents had seized in the counterfeit investigation as the vehicle her assailant was driving. After 2.5 years of investigating the crime, Laurie Cobert's attacker had been identified.
Ma'am, I need to see a license.
The assault of Laurie Cobert fit DeBartoleme's pattern exactly as it was outlined by FBI profiler Roy Hazelwood.
He puts a lot of planning into it. He has fantasized about it for a number of months, if not years, prior to the actual commission of the crime. He's rehearsed the crime. When he carries out the crime, it's generally low risk. It's generally without witnesses. It's generally at a time and place of his choosing after giving a lot of careful thought to it. And he doesn't leave any evidence. He's not seen by any witnesses.
The Secret Service had finally linked DeBartolome to a crime, but they knew more victims were out there. DeBartolome had not photographed Laurie Cobert. This still did not explain any of the photographs found in the storage locker. The investigators continued to field calls, hoping to find some explanation for the photos. They got a break when they received a call from an FBI agent working in the nearby Washington, D.C. office. He was investigating a kidnapping case that occurred in Northern Virginia that fit DeBartoleme's suspected method of operation. The agent came into the Secret Service offices to look over the photographs found in DeBartoleme's lockers. He recognized his victim in some of the pictures. With that realization, the FBI joined the investigation. FBI agents brought the victim in for an interview. Because it was dark and everything happened so fast, the victim, Amy Jones, was unable to identify DeBartolome from a photo lineup. In the hopes that she could identify her attacker's voice, FBI agents played one of the tapes from DeBartoleme's storage locker. Agent Joseph McElhaney attended the interview.
When we played them to the victim, we only played the very initial portion because she just broke down and became hysterical. But she immediately, without hesitation, 2 seconds into the tape, identified her voice and that of Mr. DeBartolome.
That's the tape he made, she told them, when he assaulted her. Her ordeal began on June 3rd, 1979, when she was walking home from her job at a convenience store in a small Maryland town.
Miss?
Shortly after midnight, a car pulled up next to her.
Ma'am, I'm Officer.
The driver identified himself as a police detective.
There's been a robbery in the area and the jogger just...
He said he was investigating a burglary at a local shop. He told her a jogger that had just passed her was a suspect. The detective wanted to ask her some questions.
I need to see some ID.
Once she was in the car, he asked her for identification. When Jones produced her driver's license, the man slipped it into his pocket and told her she was under arrest.
Behind you. Put your hands behind you.
Before she knew what was happening, he had her wrists in handcuffs.
Somebody help me! Somebody help me!
The counterfeit cop handcuffed her feet and covered her eyes with duct tape. Jones said she felt a gun being pressed to the back of her head. He threatened to kill her. The kidnapper threw a blanket over Jones.
She was then driven for a period of time, approximately, according to her account, between 2 and 3 hour drive.
Jones remembered hearing a bell, which investigators believe was the toll gate on a bridge from Maryland to Virginia. The kidnapper took her to an isolated house, where he locked her in a closet, shackling her to an eye bolt in the floor.